First, fast, accurate with Jennifer Copeland and Todd Connor. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 5.
Happening right now, flooding is still a major issue throughout our area.
And the danger expected to remain for several days. I want to show you a live look from South Bend right now. The St. Joseph River has crested, but right now several roads, parks, and homes remain flooded.
And Niles also dealing with significant flooding. This is a live look there. The city says at this point the full extent of the flood damage isn't clear.
Elkhart County also has dangerous water levels. WSBT 22 has a team of reporters working to bring you important updates on what's happening where you live. We're going to check in with them throughout the newscast.
WSBT 22 meteorologist Abby Wepler is tracking our next chance of rain, but we want to start with Chief Meteorologist Matt Rudkin. He's live along the St. Joseph River with an update on water levels. Matt.
Todd, Jennifer, yeah, as expected, it's pretty significant out here. We're on Northside Boulevard, just a little bit ways from the Indiana University South Bend campus. I'll step out of the way. This is pretty incredible to see in person. This is often a busy road, as you know, that goes to Ironwood. You can see the van there. It's clearly submerged. Beyond that, there's a couple more vehicles and buildings as well. But obviously, the significance of this is pretty impressive. Record flooding. The St. Joseph River crested at 12.7 feet. The old record was 10.9. So this is something that none of us, at least since river gauges were installed decades ago, have ever seen. And the river's obviously raging. But if there's some good news, which we're trying to find here, because I know this has displaced many of you and your families, is that the water is receding, and it has crested. And I can show it to you just by looking at the pavement here. You can see where the water was a couple hours ago and where it is now. So it is receding very, very slowly. You can see it on some of the trees as well. But this is going to be a mess. After all this does recede in days, if not weeks, then we got to clean it up. We got to get the vehicles out of here. Obviously, the buildings are going to have some significant damage as well. And want to keep reiterating, too, roads such as this, and most especially county roads between the farm fields, a lot of them that were underwater are going to lose their support. So even though the water goes away from them, they're still not safe to drive on because they could collapse underneath, and those sinkholes could be several feet deep. Like, for example, on 331, there's a sinkhole that was 5-6 feet deep. So something to keep in mind, please, if crews have barricades up, obey them, find a new route to your destination. We've got team coverage, as we have all week, on this record-breaking flood. I want to send it over to WSBT's Caitlin Connon. She's live in South Bend at the wastewater treatment plant where she's been all day. And Caitlin, it was an absolute mess there this morning. They had to shut the thing down.
Matt, that's because of all of that river water you're talking about. City leaders said the water levels got so high, they flooded some of these holding tanks. Things are back up and running now, but only at a limited capacity. The city says anything the plant can't process will end up back in the river, but sewage levels will be low, just 1 drop for every 500 drops of river water. Nearby neighbors are still concerned. John Reynolds woke up with brown water in his basement. He says it's sewage and he doesn't know what to do about it.
It killed my furnace. It killed my hot water. Now, what? What do you do about it? The city can't do anything. Your insurance can't do anything. Won't do anything because it'll cost them money. And after I'm all through with this, I'll get a new insurance company.
Reynolds says his neighbors also have water in their basement, but it's clear and cold. I spoke to them too, and even though their water is looking okay in the basement, they're still concerned about the state of the river. Hear what they have to say next at 6. Live in South Bend, Caitlin Connon, WSBT 22 News.
And here is an updated map of road closures in South Bend. Michigan Street has reopened. 6 street crews are also out patching potholes around the city. You can find a list of street closures on our website, WSBT.com. All right, want to speak directly with Mayor Pete Buttigieg about the flood or anything else happening in the city? Mayor's Night Out is still happening within the hour. You can talk with the mayor one-on-one. It starts at 5:30 at Dickinson School on Elwood Avenue.
The St. Joseph River in Niles is finally starting to recede. It crested at an historic level of 17.3 feet. WSBT 22's Cassidy Williams is live in Niles tonight. And Cassidy, many buildings are still in that standing water.
Jennifer, the city has identified 50 buildings to be flooded, but like you said, the good news is it is starting to recede. You can see here just by on the street where the water was this morning by the watermark, and that has already moved back a couple feet. But the people here at the Parkview Apartments are still having trouble getting to their apartments, getting to their cars. And while there wasn't enough water in the apartments for them to be officially evacuated, many still wish they would have had more information. The St. Joseph River has become one with downtown Niles, and not everyone saw it coming.
I had no idea it was this bad and realized my car was underwater.
Tisha Schizler lives at Parkview Apartments on 2nd Street. She can't get to her things, and her car is still in the parking lot, and some are stuck in their apartments.
We on high ground on this side.
Others improvised a way out. This morning, Niles Fire Chief Larry Lamb stopped by to make sure everyone was okay. He says he recommended to the property owner yesterday that people leave, but there wasn't enough risk to force an evacuation. He says it was the property owner's responsibility to share that message, but everyone I talked to heard nothing.
No one's been here. Well, I thought somebody'd be around, do something, or tell us what to do, or show us a way out or something.
Communication would have been a big help. I could have maybe gotten the car out yesterday morning.
Niles Mayor Nick Shelton says the city sent out its first text alert Tuesday afternoon, and that city leaders did everything they could under unprecedented circumstances.
The city has worked hard to ensure that information has been provided as often and as accurately as possible.
The full extent of the flood damage is still unclear until the water makes its way back.
Because you just never think. Rain, okay, but it's damaging my vehicle. It's moving me from my residence, my animals, my food and my refrigerator, just everything. Having to pick up and leave.
The city is working on a website so that people will have one place to go to get a bunch of different flood resources. The city doesn't expect the water levels to drop below major flood level until mid next week. I did reach out to the property owner here at Parkview and did not get a call back. Coming up at 6, I'll have more on some of the city's buildings that are also flooded. Live in Niles, Cassidy Williams, WSBT 22 News.
Right now, officials are closely monitoring the Buchanan Dam. Officials say the dam is operating as it was designed, but it's near capacity. A spokesperson for I&M Power says there are no signs of structural damage there, but the National Weather Service issued a flash flood watch for people living below the dam, areas like Buchanan and Berrien Springs.
Our team coverage continues with WSBT 22 meteorologist Abby Wepler. And Abby, you're tracking more rain. Are you expecting significant rainfall?
You know, this round that we're going to see later tonight, no, this is not going to be significant, but I know for some of you, any rain is not good rain, of course. With the images we have seen, it's nice to see a break on Storm Tracker radar where things are quiet. So aside from, of course, all those road closures we've been talking about, the evening commute, I do expect conditions have improved a bit throughout the day, allowing that water to recede. Here we go. This is the next system we're tracking. The heaviest rain, though, is going to stay to our south. I do expect, on average, we're going to see around 1/10 of an inch of rain. So watch what happens. This is through tomorrow morning. Notice through tomorrow morning, that's that light green. So this is not a huge event late tonight through tomorrow morning, but watch what happens. We have another round that we are tracking early Saturday, pretty much through early Sunday. I zoomed in to show you our southern counties, that blue. We could see an additional inch of rainfall Saturday pretty much throughout the entire day. So not great news. We are getting some breaks in between it, but even adding any more rain, for example, to the Tippecanoe River, that is not good news. Same goes for the Yellow River as well, down in Marshall County. So what are we expecting? Well, of course, we are talking about the flooding concerns as the rivers just don't go back into their banks overnight, with rain returning in that heaviest amount south. We do have a stretch of dry weather, though, heading our way. I'll tell you when you can plan for it, coming up in minutes.
First, fast, accurate with Jennifer Copeland and Todd Connor. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 6.
The rivers are cresting in some cities, but we are far from done with the flooding. Dozens of roads are still closed, as well as some schools and businesses.
That's right. That includes Elkhart schools. They are closed tomorrow. And now part of Crumstown Highway in St. Joseph County is closed. We have team coverage starting with WSBT 22 Chief Meteorologist Matt Rudkin. And he joins us live along the St. Joseph River in downtown Mishawaka. Matt?
Hey guys, yeah, we've been in South Bend, now Mishawaka, just at the St. Joseph River. We got crews elsewhere. I'll step out of the way. This is a raging river, as you would expect. The good news is the water's gone down some, but still this is at record levels. And you can see near the dam there, the water is flowing exceptionally fast as it moves downstream towards South Bend. And this has been a problem that we've obviously seen for a few days now. Some of that standing water we've dealt with that began early week. A lot of that has receded, and I'm well aware that there's still a lot of standing water, but some of that has receded, and obviously it flows into the creeks and rivers, and this is the result of it. But again, trying to find some good news here, and one of it is that the waters continue to at least slowly go down, but still very dangerous to get close to it. There's been firefighters and police officers out here. A lot of people obviously want to see what's going on, since this is literally a once-in-a-lifetime event that we've seen. Mayor Pete Buttigieg said a 500-year flood. Again, we've got team coverage all over the place. Want to send it up to Berrien County and Niles, where WSBT's Cassidy Williams is at. She said it could be over a week until some of the water recedes. And Cassidy, you mentioned there's been a lot of damage to buildings as well.
Matt, the city says 50 buildings are damaged. I'm standing in front of one of them. This is the city's Dial-A-Ride building. This is the city's public transportation, and it's one of just 50. Now, not all city buildings, some are apartments, some are businesses that have been flooded. For now, the city has moved these transportation services to the law enforcement complex if anyone needs a ride. Now, I was actually here last night around this same time when the city was building this wall of sand you can still see around this building. Clearly, the wall of sand didn't work. The river eventually crested this morning at 17.3 feet, which was record-breaking, higher than the city expected. So the sand did not hold, and the mayor said he's been getting asked a lot of questions from people about why more sandbags weren't placed elsewhere in the city, kind of closer to the river. He says the city learned back in the 1980s that when the river levels get this high, sandbags can sometimes do more harm than good.
City leaders learned that sandbags are not always an effective measure in the event of flooding, because water seeps through the bags and finer materials tend to leak through the seams.
I also asked city leaders why a state of emergency wasn't declared here like it was in other parts of our viewing area, mostly in Indiana. They said they don't know how it works in Indiana, but that here in Michigan, to declare a state of emergency, the city has to have used all of its resources, and they just didn't reach that point. But the city administrator says over the next couple of days, as they begin this cleanup, they might have to declare a state of emergency if the cleanup in Niles becomes too much to handle. Live in Niles, Cassidy Williams, WSBT 22 News.
Now back out here in St. Joseph County, obviously, again, the St. Joe River has exceeded the banks. You can see the walkway. Many of you walk your dogs here, right? The kids after school, completely covered with water. All this water, where we're at Mishawaka, is heading right towards South Bend, and that has created significant issues for the wastewater treatment plant. We'll toss it over to WSBT 22's Caitlin Conn. She's been covering this all day. Caitlin, earlier today, they had to shut the plant down. How are things going now?
It wasn't closed for long, just a few hours, but city leaders say the water levels on the river became so high that it flooded some of the holding tanks. Things are back up and running now, but only at a limited capacity. Leaders say any flow that can't be processed by the plant will end up back in the river, but any sewage would be diluted. Just one drop for every 500 drops of river water. Even with that in mind, some families are taking precautions tonight.
Yeah, no, we're not going to drink it. Right, yeah, and being cautious with what we're cleaning up. It doesn't seem to be sewage in most of the water, but I see water coming in through the sewer line. It seems like it's just a ton of water, so probably a lot of river water is in the sewer water as well.
Curry says even though he says he's even avoiding flushing his toilets, but even though the water in his basement is clear, he says there are other houses on the street that have murky water they believe has sewage in it. Live in South Bend, Caitlin Conn, WSBT 22 News.
First, fast, accurate with Jennifer Copeland and Todd Connor. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 6.
The floodwaters are starting to recede, and that's giving us a better look at some of the devastation that is left behind. Berrien County and Niles are now under states of emergency, and a bit of good news now. South Bend just lifted its travel advisory. My co-anchor Todd Connor spent the day looking at the flooding damage that's out there. And Todd, Governor Eric Holcomb led a group of state leaders on 2 tours of flooding.
Jennifer, he certainly did. He said he wanted to make sure that state agencies are working with local communities to keep those communities safe. And he said that some agencies like NDOT's, they're already doing that.
We opened Michigan again, so now all 4 lanes are open. The Department of Corrections is on the ground helping with sandbagging. Department of Homeland Security, you've been here since yesterday, but we're all in.
After a stop in South Bend where he met local leaders, the governor headed to Goshen to meet with the Elkhart and Goshen mayors. He toured some flooding at Rogers Park and met with city workers and volunteers and promised to help get the city back on its feet. I asked Goshen Mayor Jeremy Stutzman if he had a list of things he'd like to see from the state.
We're just now trying to discover what we don't know yet. So we're looking, we're making our list. We don't know what condition our infrastructure is in at this point, so we're going to be assessing all that.
And speaking of assessment, that's part of the reason that the governor wanted to come here as well. He wanted to assess the damage. He wanted to see the flooding firsthand, and he got a chance to do that in a couple of brief tours here today, one at IUSB where we are now and another in Goshen. But it will take some time to assess the entire damage because the water will need to go down quite a bit for them to do that. Speaking of the water going down, it is starting to recede in many places, though in Berrien County they did just declare a state of emergency today. WSBT 22's Jesse Schultz is live in Berrien Springs. And Jesse, 60 people are homeless as of right now, is that right?
Yeah, that is right. People here at River Springs Estate had to evacuate on Wednesday night. I'm about as far into the estate as the Berrien County Sheriff's deputy will let me be, but even just looking right beside me, you can see that this field, which now looks like a lake, is just evidence of just how much water this area received. Since I've been here, the U.S. Coast Guard has flown by in a helicopter several times. Coast Guard officials say they've been assessing the damage in Berrien County. Many of the people in River Springs turned to family and friends for shelter, but others went to the Red Cross. The organization set up a shelter at the Berrien Springs Middle School gym. Many I spoke to say they had to leave so fast they could only grab a few personal belongings, but some are seeing the good in a bad situation.
Really, everybody got out and nobody was hurt, so the only thing people are really going to be worried about now is losing what they could replace easily.
Our community has been outstanding with bringing in food, clothes, items for the kids to play with. So, you know, it's been a total community effort.
The Berrien County Sheriff's Department is letting a few people go in and grab some personal belongings. I also saw animal control here reuniting people with their missing animals. One town leader says it's great to see the community banding together, but he says the true test and when they're going to need all the help that they can get is when all of this water recedes and the cleanup really starts. I also spoke to the manager of these estates. She says there's 180 families that are displaced here, and based on her early estimate, she thinks about half of these homes are damaged beyond repair. I'm live in Berrien County. Jesse Schultz, WSBT 22 News.
Oh, a lot of people affected by all of this flooding, Jesse. Thank you. And of course, it's not just homes, but businesses as well. Lots of businesses on both sides of the state line closing down and now hoping to reopen soon. In Goshen, Kroger sent engineers in to inspect the store on Chicago Avenue. The water was inside the store. This is not far from where the governor was today. Crews are inspecting the building and cleaning up the debris. They will throw away anything that is contaminated or damaged, they assure you of that. The store will remain closed for now, but Kroger is sending a mobile pharmacy to restore prescription service, and the fuel center will also reopen within the next week. But we're not out of the woods yet. at least as far as the rain is concerned. Chief Meteorologist Matt Rudkin is talking about more rain heading our way, right, Matt?
More rain, yep, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. I want to continue to update you on river levels. I know many of you are still looking for this information. From the National Weather Service, these are river forecasts. The blue line's what happened. This purple line is what will happen, at least forecast. And the pink area here is major flood. That's when it's over its banks, creating issues. And notice it doesn't start to subside into a minor or moderate flood stage until Sunday night and into Monday. We'll make our way to the Kankakee River again. It did crest and it continues to pretty much flatline, but eventually is forecast to go down by later in on the weekend. St. Joseph River obviously impacting Elkhart, St. Joseph, and Berrien counties. Let's look at 3 cities. This is downtown South Bend. Record crest at 12.7 feet. It is forecast to go down, but it's going to take time. That's Tuesday or Wednesday next week before it's in moderate flood stage. This is in Niles. Notice again, record crest of 17 feet. It has continued to forecast to go down to a minor flood stage by about Tuesday or Wednesday next week. And this is in Elkhart, much of the same, forecast to go down, but it's going to take even longer out that way. We'll make our way down into our southern counties as we head to the Tippecanoe River, where you've seen significant issues in not just Winnemac, but also in Fulton County and Kosciuszko counties with a river that's obviously at its capacity for holding water. You'll notice this river, at least in Winnemac, is forecast to actually continue to worsen, eventually cresting by about Saturday afternoon or early Sunday. So the flooding will get worse there before it gets better. The last river I want to show you is the Elkhart River in Goshen, where obviously this created major problems. It did crest at record levels, but has already receded to a minor flood stage. So things are much better in Goshen, but now you're in the cleanup process out that way. I do have some rain, unfortunately, we got to talk about for the weekend, but there is some sunshine and dry weather to talk about as well. I'll have your forecast coming up in about 8-10 minutes.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. So a little good news for some. The St. Joseph River in Elkhart cresting and beginning to go down. That is a good thing for a lot of those people there, but still a lot of people need help. Elkhart Community Schools is reaching out to help some of those people. WSBT 22's Veronica Ortega is live in Elkhart right now with more on that story. Veronica.
Todd, first responders assisted with more than 200 evacuations and rescues since flooding began. But things have slowed down in the past 24 hours, but many people still out of their homes remain in need of help. Elkhart Central High School was one of the hardest hit areas in the city. Rice Field remains underwater, but the parking lot is no longer flooded. The donation drive started this morning. Within a few hours, they had about a quarter of a school bus filled. School and city officials are working with the Red Cross to distribute supplies collected to those in need. The most critical things needed right now are personal hygiene products and monetary donations, which can be dropped off at the Elkhart City Police Department.
It's just great to see the community coming together, the city, the school system, you know, students, teachers. We had students out the other day that were helping fill sandbags. So it's just great to see everybody come together. We hope we can continue this effort as we all work through this recovery process.
The Elkhart County Humane Society is also in need of pet supplies for those displaced pets. You can drop those donations off tonight at the boys basketball game at Northside Middle School. They will have a school bus parked there until 7:30. Live in Elkhart, Veronica Ortega, WSBT 22 News.
All right, Veronica, thank you very much. So the flooding beginning to recede, but it's going to take a few more days still. And then that's when the massive cleanup will begin. And hopefully we'll have a better assessment of how much damage was done. Governor Holcomb wanting to remind people again to document and report their damage to the appropriate state or local agency so that your area can qualify for state and federal assistance. Very important to do that, he said. That is the latest from here on the IUSB campus. Jennifer, back to you.
All of that documentation becomes very important when something like this happens. And of course, all of the cleanup is something that will be ongoing and we will be following for, unfortunately, months to come. Todd, thank you very much out there. Meantime, kids went back to school in Goshen with a special escort today. A busy stretch of Plymouth Avenue was flooded this week, and the water on the roadway went down, but the sidewalk that middle school students use is still flooded. So firefighters helped to shuttle those kids to school to keep them safe.
The one place we were worried about was this walking path right here. And Mayor Stutzman offered to have the fire department come out here just to ensure the safety, because otherwise the kids might have to walk in the roadway. And this is one of our busier roads.
The school system hopes the sidewalk will be clear of water by next week. The flooding in Knox is causing concerns at the wastewater treatment plant there. City leaders say it's running at near capacity. Things are expected to get worse, so the city is asking people to just take precautions like reducing water use. They really want to make sure that your basement and your bathroom floor drains are not plugged. Now, the Knox wastewater plant could be shut down in the next 48 hours. You're being asked to report any flood damage that you have, so here are some numbers to call if you live in St. Joseph, Elkhart, or Marshall counties. You can also report damage to the Indiana Department of Homeland Security through its website. We have all of the numbers on WSBT.com for you, so just click on the story that you see there titled Resources Available for Flood Victims.